Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk to you about the most beautiful melodies in the world. But this is sort of a special appendix to our 10 video series where you and I together have picked out the world's most beautiful melodies. In this case, I've picked out all of them, but I want to talk about a particular kind of melody, one that I think has a special affection for music lovers everywhere, but I'm not sure how many people have identified it as a type and traced it through its various iterations. I'm talking about the kind of melody that has what I call a harmonic clincher. In earlier days, this was sometimes called the purple patch. I'm not quite sure why, but purple patch, if you know what that was, suggests a certain sort of cheap sentimentality, and that's not what I'm after at all. I'm talking about one of those tunes that rises to a harmonic climax that just makes a chill run down your spine. It doesn't have to be loud, it can be quite soft, but it has to do with harmony, with something in the harmony that just sends a shiver down your spine when it happens. You know what I mean? It's almost impossible to define, but you know it when you hear it. It was like the Supreme Court definition of pornography. You may not know what it is, but you know it when you see it. And it's that kind of thing. These tunes have been structurally and technically analyzed a million different ways throughout history, but academia cannot tell us why they have the physical impact that they do. Saint-Saëns once very memorably said something like this. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like this. He said, anyone who does not understand the beauty in a series of simple chords, perfect only in their arrangement and their relationship to each other, does not understand anything about music. And he was right. He was right. So I have here 4 examples of this kind of melody, 3 of which are all related to each other, one of which is inimitably special for its composer. But I want to begin at the beginning. The first melody of this type that I can think of, or that I encountered, or at least that struck me, that did the old chill down the spine thing, is the what you call it thingy. There we go. That's a really great way to start, isn't it? It's the slow movement of Haydn's quartet in F minor, opus 20. It's opus 20 number 5, I think here. Yes, opus 20 number 5. And the tune is a Siciliano. And a Siciliano, or Siciliana, however you want, whether it's masculine or feminine, a Siciliana is a slowish tune in a lilting 6/8 or 12/8 meter. It goes dum bum 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 bum, or dum ba dum bum, like that. And it's one of those. It's used in lullabies. It's a very consoling and gently rocking rhythm. And this particular example is fascinating for several reasons. First of all, Haydn is not known as a tunesmith, the way like Mozart was, for example, but he wrote some unbelievably extraordinary melodies. Ironically, the reason he's not known as a tunesmith is because he wrote so many different kinds of melodies. So there isn't any sort of standard form, just as there's no standard form in anything Haydn did. And this tune is a case in point. This is the longest example of all the ones I'm going to play you, which is ironic because all the other ones that we're going to hear come from the Romantic period, and they are long lyrical romantic melodies. Well, Haydn's is the longest, most lyrical, and most romantic of them all. It's the model for virtually everything that came later, and it really is extraordinary as a tune. This tune has a particular shape. It's repeated twice, the basic melody, the second time with some kind of variation and enrichment. In this case, because it comes from a string quartet, the melody is embroidered with decorations, free rhapsodizing from the first violin, while all of the other strings repeat the melody underneath with slight variations. And then this second repeat of the tune rises to the big moment, the clincher. the clincher, the moment that makes you shudder and shiver. And it is absolutely extraordinary. So I'm going to play you that entire passage. It's over 2 minutes long, but it rises to the most wonderful, wonderful climax. And just as important, by the way, in getting to the climax is what the composer does afterwards. Once you've reached the pedestal, you have to get off the pedestal. And getting off the pedestal is a big deal, because it's the way you get off that sometimes tells us that we've been up there, how high we've reached. And so it's the approach, the moment, and the decline afterwards, all of which have to be perfect miracles of poetic and musico-harmonic thought. And Haydn certainly does it in this Siciliano. It's just the whole quartet, the F minor quartet, is, one of the ultimate pieces in the history of humanity. And this Siciliano comes third after the first movement, the minuet, because Haydn wants it to be at a very special spot. It's the emotional heart of the quartet, and it's followed by one of his famous fugues for string quartet, which is very emotionally somewhat chilling and in complete contrast to what we've just heard, which is part of the larger scheme that Haydn's working with. But I can't go into that in all the detail I'd like. Here, the point is the melody. So I want you to listen to this melody. And since I have permission, thank you, Andreas, from Tacet Recordings in Germany. We have my favorite performance of it with the Ivory Quartet on Tacet of the Haydn Quartet in F minor, Siciliano. Listen to this melody. Yeah. See what I mean? You saw I put the superscript where the clincher happens, so you can tell exactly where it was. Now, this melody had some very famous offspring, some of which I think can be almost directly traced back to Haydn's original. One of them is the lyrical theme in the first movement of Brahms' second string sextet, the G major sextet. This is also one of the most beautiful melodies in the world. It very easily could have been part of that talk, but in this case, it rises to a climax, which is remarkably similar to Haydn's. Now, there's a difference because it's going quickly. It's a fast tune. Haydn's is a slow tune, and it's Brahms. I mean, so he's not copying directly, but the harmonic inspiration, the tune that you hear twice, and which the second time rises to that climax that sends a shiver down your spine. Well, that happens here too. And so here it is with the Verdi quartet on Hänssler in this rather lovely set of all the Brahms quartets, quintets, and sextets. And here it is, the second subject of the Brahms G major sextet. That's number 2. Here you go. Did you catch the similarity at the climax? They both have a triple climax where they hit that crunching chord 3 times. In Haydn, it's ya-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. And in Brahms, it's da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. But I've actually made a little sample to put them right next to each other so you can hear how I think Brahms got his inspiration from Haydn. And I have the Haydn climax followed by a second pause, then the Brahms climax. Then I've done a little of very primitive technical wizardry and sped up the Haydn to the tempo of the Brahms. And I sort of boosted the volume so you can hear how when you put them next to each other like that, the similarity becomes even more obvious. So have a listen to this. I'm rather proud of this, actually. I'm not sure it's going to work, but give it a listen and see what you think. I think that kind of did it, don't you? It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And so you have, in a totally different context from Haydn's, what I regard as an absolutely obvious inspiration. And the first time I heard the Brahms, I mean, I knew the Haydn, and I heard the Brahms, and I went, oh, ooh, that's Haydn. Was I right? I don't know. You can be the judge. Everybody hears these things differently. It affects all of us in a different way. But one of the all-time great tunes in the history of humanity, I think can also be traced back to Haydn's example. And that's the tune of Chopin's etude in E major, opus 10, number 3. This tune, now this etude is basically a simple ABA, but the A section is one of those Haydn tunes. It repeats itself twice, the second time rising to that amazing climax that offers the harmonic clincher. And so I want to play that tune for you. And here I have Earl Wild, the inimitable Earl Wild. It used to be on Chesky doing the complete Chopin etudes. It was this disc. Now it's on Ivory Classics, Earl Wild's own label. And you'll hear exactly what I mean when you hear this tune, because by now, having heard Haydn and Brahms, you know the shape of the melody. It's going to repeat itself twice, the second time with enrichments, and then heading to that climax. Here we go. That was the Chopin Etude Opus 10, number 3 in E major, played by Earl Wild. And I mean, that tune is so well known, we take it for granted. Nobody ever thinks about it. And of course, everyone assumes that that melody is completely, totally original to Chopin, which of course it is in the actual direction that it takes. But the shape of the melody, the structure of the melody, and the emotional pattern of tension and ultimate release comes directly from that tune we heard in Haydn's F minor quartet, opus 20, number 5. But finally, I have one more example I want to play for you, and this is a tune of a completely different type. The composer is that ultimate 19th century tunesmith, Schubert. And Schubert wrote so many absolutely extraordinarily gorgeous melodies that you can't even begin to catalog them. But this one comes from his piano sonata in C minor. This is Deutsch 958, one of his last 3 piano sonatas. And it's absolutely gorgeous. Its model was actually Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, quite possibly. But the second subject does the harmonic hoogie thingy, the clincher, that absolutely sends a chill down your spine, or at least it does me. And in this particular case, it's just the tune itself. The moment happens in the middle of the tune, and you just hear it twice, moment and all, because Schubert is particularly generous with such things, especially with these fabulous, unexpected harmonic shifts into places that you don't know. And what that harmony does in this tune, again, it's almost impossible to describe in words. You have to hear it. But this is a very simple tune that's sort of zipping up and down the scale rather nonchalantly, and then all of a sudden it lands on a chord, and the heavens open. And our vision becomes wider and broader and takes us into undreamt of realms of musical poetry. I can't even describe it any other way. What I need to do is play it for you. So here is Yeno Yando on Naxos playing that absolutely exquisite second subject of the first movement of Schubert's C minor piano sonata, Deutsch number 958. Here you go. Oh my God, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. It's amazing, isn't it? So these were 4 examples of a particular kind of melody, the kind of tune that gets stuck in your head, the kind of tune that has a physical impact and whose effect on us we can't explain. Theorists can't explain it. Nobody can explain it. It has something to do with the way we hear music, the way that we're hardwired to respond to it emotionally. It's part of the mystery of what music is, and the mystery of what melody is, and why great tunes, you can only listen to them. You can't really describe them. You can't really analyze them in any useful way. They're just there. Imperishable objects of permanent beauty. At least that's how I think of them. And I just wanted to share these 4 examples with you and ask you also if you have any examples that are similar. Not just tunes that you love. I mean tunes that have a specific shape. The specific Haydn variety or the Schubert variety, ones that have simple harmonic shifts within them. I'll give you an example of another guy who did that all the time, Franck. Franck was a master at that kind of melody. He does it all the time. The most famous example is the finale of the violin sonata. You know, ba da 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 da, ya da 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 da. You hum the tune, just the melody. It doesn't sound so great, but when you put it together with its harmonies, holy mackerel! It just hits you. It hits you where you live. So that's the goal here. Find a tune that hits you where you live, but that has a distinctive shape that you can describe. You know, Haydn's is such a clearly articulated form, and it's the form of the melody as well that makes that climax so affecting and so powerful, because it's the conclusion of a process that's been going on, in Haydn's case, for almost 2 minutes. And so you have all the more impact when that moment finally arrives. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the whole enchilada, the complete melodic picture. And if you've got some ideas, please write and share them with me. And maybe I'll have an opportunity to play them and talk about them as well. It would be a lot of fun. This, like I said, is a sort of sequel to the most beautiful melodies, because here I want to talk about the kind of melody. I just think it's a whole different way of listening, and fascinating to me. It's a topic that you can explore for the rest of your life, and never have an answer, but have a heck of a great time on the journey. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me for this talk. Take care.